another episode of Copy Weekly. My name is Otto. I'm here with
Sheldon. Today is just the two of us. And if you haven't listened to the previous episodes, you wouldn't know why it is the case. But if you have, now you know why. And I'm not going to give any spoilers because I want to create this curiosity inside of the listeners to go there and listen to the previous episode. But today we're going to be talking about pivoting. And I think one thing in life that is very constant is change. And it's funny because Hendrik's YouTube channel is called Constant Change. It's very, very funny because I think change is something that happens quite often in our life, or basically regularly every now and then. Like there is even this phrase when I don't know exactly how it is, but when someone jumps into the river twice, neither the river is the same or the person is the same, or something like this, because the water is different. There's another like water molecules, and also the person have been transformed. Because we're always being transformed by our experiences. But I'm already going too deep into the subject, so I want to see how you see this topic, pivoting. How to?
Yeah, I think, we tend to talk about things that concern us right now. And I think the concept of pivoting, meaning that given a situation, external change, or just something that's most likely is not sustainable to continue as it was before, you decide to cut down on things and reduce it to the things that you know work well. So if you think of a company pivoting, let's say you have a company with a lot of spending, and you have Corona and people maybe don't spend as much anymore, and you look at the numbers and you're like, oh my God, we won't have any cash left in 6 months. So you have the choice to keep it running and hit a wall, or you say, nope, we will change directions, we will pivot, we will choose to, maybe we have three products. One is gives a lot of I don't know the word for it. It makes a win. Oh my God, my English. Another product is maybe even, and another one is losses. So you say, okay, maybe we focus on the ones that work very well. But yeah, this concept of pivoting you can apply to, life, to design thinking, to how you structure your day and your workouts, or I don't know, any personal plans. And I think it's something that we come across even if we don't really want to, but it just happens. And it's good to just be aware it's there. It happens all the time. And I think especially in the times right now where we have the whole market going through some kind of pivoting, because it's kind of like a recession, and individuals or groups within the market have to pivot, or they might dissolve, or they maybe survive stronger, or in any other ways. But this is a situation, and we have it in our podcast as well. Now we're two instead of three. So we pivot and we can decide, okay, maybe we are just two people doing the same thing. So it's not really a big pivot because we keep doing the same thing. But I would still say in some way it is focusing, narrowing down, and being a bit sharper. Okay, what is the thing we want to talk about? What are the things we can focus on? And that's pretty much the topic for today. But you were already in a nice talking flow, Sheldon. I don't want to interrupt you, so go ahead. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, so basically, some of the things we mentioned, we discussed 2 episodes ago. We talked about the layoffs and what were some of the things that influenced this economic change that we're having right now. And this fits very good into today's topics, which is we see changes on the macro level, like for example, COVID, the pandemic changed pretty much everybody's lives. I believe that everybody lives a different life previous to 2020 and after 2020. And then nowadays, with the culture being the economics being changing, like companies laying off, cutting costs, etc., etc. So now probably we are going to see some behavior change, maybe. And also this affects, like, talking to the people that have been laid off. They themselves now have changed in their lives because they are going to change jobs. And this is also one type of change or pivoting, and this implies on a lot of things that you need to change. And then those things can be imposed upon us, like COVID or being fired, or those changes can be chosen by us, like we decide to move to a different job, or we decide to stop working on a project. And even this podcast being changed, even though you mentioned that the change itself don't like, it's not a huge change. Now we have 2 instead of 3 participants, but I believe that these also have impacts on, like, for example, the dynamics. Now we know that if I stop talking, only Otto is going to be talking. Before we had to wait, and there was a little bit of uncomfortable silence because we were waiting which one is going to be the next one to talk. So now the dynamics changing, and I'm going to finish with my thought with this concept from a guy that I forgot his name now, but basically the concept is a book actually called "The Medium is the Message," and sometimes this book is intentionally misspelled as "The medium is the massage," because the medium massages your brain. And basically the idea of this concept is the way that we consume the content, not the content itself. The content changes us, but the way we consume the content also changes us. And then in the book, there is this quick example that is very interesting, which is society before the television was more based on text. Like the communication in society before the television was mostly based on text, and these contributed to the society being more global, like these contributed to globalism. And then now with the introduction of radio and TV, the main medium of communication is via audio, or in this case, TV, like video as well. And because we changed from text to audio, this resembles more the time we lived in tribes and we were sharing stories via oral. So now what this means is we are having a shift on the way we behave, from being, instead of being more global, being more local, like tribalist. And then you see those groups like emo, hardcore, hard rock, and even like Gen Z, but these actually are generation. But like inside of the generations, you have like tribes and groups of people that organize themselves, and they are thinking even every day more and more just one way of thinking instead of a more global way. And this guy, which created the book "The Medium is a Message," believes that the way that we consume content influenced. And I think I digress a little bit. I don't know if it was a little bit confusing, but let me know what you think.
But let me pick on that situation with yet another concept, but it's relevant. So there is 2 processes that tend to happen in cycles. One is that if we think of a market, or you're explaining something, is that we diverge, or we basically add more things, we broaden our scope, things grow, and they just keep on filling the room and filling the space. This is basically what happened probably after the last 2008 market crash, and this happened probably during the last minutes in our podcast. But then at some point you have the flipping point. This is the point where you start pivoting, where you start converging. So basically you take all these things that you have and you prioritize, you cut down, you more and more narrow down to a very small defined set of things that you're going to continue with. So when I apply this concept to, let's say, design, maybe not only in a visual sense, but designing, let's say, a system or planning a task that you want to do, there's like this, I think it's called a double diamond shape or something, where basically you start with like one idea, one point, and then you grow the ideas, you explore all the possibilities you have, you kind of brainstorm, and then you say, okay, we want to start somewhere. So you take all these ideas and you focus down on one concrete plan. This is what we're going to do from all the ideas with these combinations, and because you can't build everything, you don't have infinite time, but you select on the subset. This is the first diamond. And then the second diamond is, okay, you start building. So you build out all these things, and something is not really quite sure how they're going to be done yet. You need to modify something. You keep growing, but it's not really finished yet. So the last step and the second diamond, converging again, is you take what you've built and you set yourself like a deadline or something, and just by this day, we're going live. And you will not 100% have everything you want to do. So we need to cut again. But that's like a healthy process where you allow for both ideas in the beginning, but also real life, input that you discovered while building something, to at the end have a solid product that contains your ideas and your goals. So in that sense, when we talk about our conversation now, we apply the same concept to our discussions. First, we explore different concepts. We just throw them on the table. We leave them in the room and just see what happens. And then we pick some of them and we focus the conversation again and have something like come back to the topic. So what is pivoting? What does it mean? And I think that's a good concept to take away and to be aware of, because you can apply it to, for example, right now I'm working with different companies. And when I try to take a step back, it's like, at what phase are they right now? I somehow observe that most projects I got into are in the last stage of the double diamond, where they did the ideas, they went to a plan, they started building, but now they just want to ship it. And I have the feeling the last convergence, or going back again to a small, narrow, defined point, seems to be kind of the hardest, because this is a point where it's real, You're not. It's also real that you build everything and you're trying to make it happen, but to break the barrier into reality and setting yourself a date and making it happen cannot always be easy, because it's nice to diverge. It's nice to, we can do this. We have a bit more time. And, if you keep doing it for a while, that's fine. But it can be, if you diverge too much, the growth, I think, can be not productive, not healthy, maybe even in some ways. You might diverge into infinity and never basically come to the point, literally to one point that you want to achieve. So I think pivoting, convergence, cutting things down is a very healthy thing. If it happens by external influence, or by setting it yourself. If you always cut yourself down, if you always converge, that's probably not healthy as well. If you always diverge, so it's like a cycle. Go back, open up, maybe if you move, but then just chill for a while. Stay in the country, do whatever the fuck you want. It doesn't have to make sense. Just do it. But then maybe after a year or two, be like, okay, now I have like 20 different projects, or 10, kind of in my case. Maybe I should focus on some of them and make something out of them. That's the concept.
What you just described reminded me of a blog post that later turned into a talk called it's something, I think if you Google Twitter principal engineer 1,000 flowers, you probably find this talk. And he was a principal engineer at Twitter, as I just said. So now I'm curious if he was laid off or if he left Twitter before, or anyway, like where is him now? But anyway, the topic is basically letting 1,000 flowers grow, meaning let's diverge, let's try all things out, and then we take one flower and let all the rest of the other flowers die. And the context that the talk was given was the context of growing a huge application like Twitter. And the idea is that each team on each microservice would have the freedom to come up with the technology that they want, the structure that they want, and basically freedom, letting flowers grow. So then you have a flower in Java, a flower in PHP, a flower in JavaScript, so on and so forth. But then eventually it grows to a point where we need to converge. Okay, so now we have all of these technologies. It's causing confusion. Let's converge to one technology. So then we pick one flower and let all the other flowers die. So this concept is very interesting because sometimes and I've been into meetings like these like so many times, and I see that a lot of people come to meetings and go out of meetings complaining, oh, this meeting should have been just an email, or oh, this meeting was useless. Most of the time because the meeting just diverge, and never converge. So I think that every discussion or everything, the first thing that you need to understand, and now go into the diversion, to the conversion point of this podcast. So the first thing that you need to be aware of is that every thing that you're exploring needs to first diverge, but don't forget to converge and come up to a final point. And if it's a meeting, for example, the final point should be something like action items or decisions being made and being documented and so stuff like that. And I want to continue with converging the topic. So now we talked about like how to tackle change. I want to talk also about like how to prepare for change. I think like talking again about COVID, one of the huge things that people experience, like setting the disease aside, not talking about the disease, just talking about like the culture changes, like the lockdowns and we working from home and so on and so forth. These decreased mental health, like generally speaking, for people. So how would you, and also when research started showing up on mental health, most of the people seemed that, so basically the mental health was due to the fact that we don't know when things are going to go back to normal. Like even to this day, we don't know, like we kind of are back, but kind of not. So this uncertainty is something that causes a lot of stress. So I think one thing that we need to do to prepare for change or for pivots is to be aware or try to identify the uncertainties and try to come up with things that either make those things certain or mitigations. Like for example, COVID, I don't know when it's gonna finish, but I set up my home environment because I'm gonna be working from home, and I set up some stuff that I need to do when I'm traveling, like, oh, should I use a mask or not, and stuff like that. So new habits and new things that I now have to do to prepare for a change. So do you think about other ways of preparing for change or mitigating the impacts of a change?
I mean, it's very interesting because I think for many changes that you anticipate because you want them, or for changes that happen, sometimes I would even say the preparation is not always necessary, or can even sometimes be hurtful, because I think the process of cutting down, of pivoting, is pretty much something that happens more in the flow. Because, I mean, it depends. It's a very big it depends, I would say. But my take on is usually when I'm in the process of, you have a meeting and you have a lot of ideas, and then I cut down on something. I kind of like to go in the flow because it is almost never what I expected. It is, this is what I learned. I just try to prepare maybe, but I realized I'm not good enough preparing, or I can't really foresee what the pivoted point will be in the end. But I always realized that when I go with the flow, in the aftermath, I was always very happy with it. I was always very pleased that I had the space to grow, but I was also very pleased that I found some kind of force decision or flow that made me focus on something and move on. Because it can feel like, or at least what happened to me, like when I prepare, it felt like an excuse to even more diverge, maybe. But it's very, very subjective to the situation. But what I can definitely say in terms of preparation, what can definitely be done is, one needs to adjust their expectations, obviously, because I think just by the nature of divergence, it's much more satisfying. You don't have restrictions. Literally, you can take any space that there is until you breach and then hit the limits. And it feels more like, you know, human nature. I mean, we're, as a species, we're spreading out far beyond our limits, but we keep going because, you know, no restrictions is good. You know, we can spread, we can multiply, we can sadly pollute our planet. But if we're not like, and we are badly affected by this, but we still keep going in some ways. And so I think preparation is more like, yeah, force yourself into it. I mean, find a way to not let yourself slip out. It's not terribly bad, but I think there's more energy and more initiative needed to sustain yourself through a converging period that pivoting is in that sense. Does it answer your question?
No, I think it's perfect. So we talked about like, first of all, the idea of diversion and conversion, and then some mitigations from when changes might happen. So what are other aspects you think pivoting could sparkle on a person?
I mean, when it comes to a person, I mean, there were some things you said earlier that I could saw some parallels with something I can draw. It also affects us at the end as a person, but more as a general topic, is that when we spoke about these cycles, so things grow, things cut down, and they happen in cycles up and down, smaller or bigger, but in one way or the other, it somehow happens. I was realizing that after every iteration, after each generation, so you have 1,000 flowers and pick the best, the biggest, the shiniest, the prettiest. It really reminded me of a very well-known principle called evolution, survival of the fittest. And you can draw so many perspectives or parallels from pivoting to this, because I think the term pivoting usually refers to a somewhat deliberate choice, whereas survival is not really deliberate, but I mean, either you live or you don't. I mean, this is like time is ticking. Your body needs food to survive and withstand. So maybe survival is one application of, well, forced pivoting, where given the circumstances, and maybe you have, I don't know, a forest area with food that only has a certain supply. And if you are there with like 200 other hungry people, and they're eating your mushrooms away, and you can't have food for tonight, well, you have to pivot in some way. You have to find a way to survive. I mean, are you going to cooperate? Are you going to fight? Are you going to move? But there is change involved. And maybe there's some concepts we can take from that, because I think evolution as a concept itself is healthy. There will be conflicts, there will be deaths, there will be pain, there will be destroyed landscape, whatever. But in the end, after every generation, we come out stronger, fitter, and more adaptive to whatever the situation is. So next time we might, be already, we have it inside of us, we have it in our blood, we know what the right thing is, hopefully. We might do other mistakes along the way, but I think the process, the constant change, I kind of like to refer to this concept, is healthy. I'm of course sad that I was laid off, but I already found something new, so I'm very happy that this happened. And before I was seeking it myself, before I was constantly like, okay, after 1.5 years, I need a change, I gotta move somewhere or do something else. And I have said, well, it has its downsides. You lose friends along the way. I mean, you keep the ones that are the closest to you. You keep the best flowers, of those 1,000 flowers. And this is kind of nice. But also sometimes, I mean, right now I've moved so much in the last months and years, I feel a bit like, yeah, at least I don't want to move. I don't want to think about moving right now, like not at all. But there's other things I can pivot on. There's other changes. But as long as there's some change somewhere, it's good. I mean, of course, like maybe the last weeks I've been chilling a lot, but still there's change coming up. So I think pivoting, change is good. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it makes a lot of sense. When you started talking about like evolution and survival of the fittest and bringing this concept to this context, one word came to my mind, which is resilience. Because basically we're talking about, like, so from the beginning of the podcast, we talked that change is something that is constant, there is always happening. And in order to survive the changes, because the changes can be either inflicted upon you, like you being fired, or your partner leaving you, or you can be the one inflicting the change, like you being the one letting your partner go, or you firing someone else, or you resigning from the job and changing to another job. But in both cases, you need to prepare in different ways for this change. And then of course, with preparation comes mitigations. And then there is one last thing that I want to talk about, which is kind of my closing thoughts with I already said like several times that life is constantly changing, and sometimes you have several things changing at the same time. And for some people, they are more resilient to that. Like some people, there are some people that don't have a house. Can you imagine? They are like digital nomads, living months in places and traveling country by country. Like I wouldn't imagine myself doing that, at least not today. Maybe I'll change in the future. But this is something that you should be very resilient to be able to support changing this much, this often. And then one other thing that I want to mention as well is if you are not that resilient, you can start creating tools to help you to support survive the changes. And one tool that I really like is documentation. And by documentation, it can mean anything, like a text document or an application. For example, in our industry, we use prioritization boards, so we can prioritize our tasks and separate tasks into different periods. So then we decide, oh, in this period, we're going to deliver this, and then in the next period, we're going to deliver that. And when you're managing several projects, then it's easier because you have boards or documentation saying to you, oh, here is where you left, and here are the things that you need to do. So you kind of warm up the previous state that once was down when you had to change your context to something else. So that's my final words. And I sometimes don't like a lot of changing because I think you can kind of get fed up with change. And I kind of did this past couple of weeks. I was traveling, I did a big travel, and then there were a lot of things going on in my personal life. And so I kind of got a little bit fed up, but now I think I'm rested again. So maybe I'm now more welcoming of more changes. So let's hope for more changes in the future. So how about you, Otto?
I mean, it's interesting. I think we might be in similar phases. I mean, it's not really representative for any change, but this morning I did yoga, I think, for the first time since a long time, probably the first time this year even. And it just felt like that over the last weeks, there was a lot of things to work through, to figure out in my life. But now I think the process of pivoting and converging has already been ongoing for a while. And now things become more clear. There's less fog in my mind. There's more, burning fires I have to deal with. It's more like I mean, I have done maybe a part of the work of giving myself the chance to open up, but also now taking the opportunity to focus on the things the flowers that I know work well, and to cut the things that maybe haven't brought me so much forward, or where I noticed, okay, I was slacking off, I was wasting my time, I was not being productive when I did certain projects, or I don't know, behaviors not working out and things like that. So yeah, but now to bring it back all to the final point of pivoting to be as narrow as possible, I would say the concept of pivoting is something, it helps a lot being aware of. Just it is happening constantly all the time. I mean, think about, your relationship, think about your work, think about the country you live in, think about learning languages or any projects that you have. Try to take a step back and just realize, in which phase am I right now? Is it the right thing to do? Like, is it something that would benefit in the long run by expanding the service area? Or is it something that would benefit from shrinking it, from cutting things down, even though it hurts a little bit, but it would be always very good in the end. Think of a tree that you would cut down, I don't know when you do it, in spring or autumn or summer. I don't know. At some point, it's healthy to cut a lot of the small branches so that the main branch can grow stronger and higher. I think that's my closing sentence, closing words.
That's awesome. So I think that's it. Life is always changing. Change is constant. Prepare yourself for that and learn to rest, not to give up. That's it for me. Thank you. See you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.